Coming up on Network Africa, 3,000 makeshift stores destroyed in Zambia market fire barely 2 months after the country's biggest trading facility was gutted. More support for Sierra Leone as Nigeria sends relief materials to victims of the recent mudslide that claimed 400 lives. And 100 Nigerians join other young leaders in the 2017 Mandela Washington Fellowship. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker. We begin in East Africa, where another major market has been gutted by fire in Zambia. The main Masala market, located in Ndola, a town in the Copperbelt region, is the latest market to catch fire nearly 2 months after the country's biggest trading facility was burned. The cause of the fire and the extent of the damage has not yet been established, although an estimated 3,000 makeshift stores are thought to have been destroyed. In early July, Lusaka's city market was burned down following a spate of fires that affected other public buildings such as courts and electricity installations. The series of fires prompted President Edgar Lungu to declare a semi-state of public emergency, which is still in effect. Well, local authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo say 4 people have died after a mine collapsed in the southern city of Kolwezi, although the local media put the death toll at 28. The area, which is an important mining center for copper and cobalt, was cordoned immediately. A recent mudslide in the northeast killed some 200 people following heavy rains that caused the hill to cave in on a fishing village on the shores of Lake Albert. And just a little over 2 weeks after the Sierra Leone mudslide and flooding that killed at least 500 people in regions, survivors face an uncertain future in the wake of the disaster. Well, one survivor takes us through the moment when the disaster happened.
When a mudslide hit Regent Town in Sierra Leone on the 14th of August, the side of Mount Sugarloaf collapsed, leaving a river of mud, rocks and rubble sweeping homes as families were asleep. About 500 people died in what has been described as one of Africa's worst flooding-related disasters in years following heavy rain. Hassan Toure, a youth leader in his neighborhood, says he lost many friends and some family members in the mudslide.
Around them 2 now. The rain is heavy.
Around 2 a.m. in the morning, the rain was heavy. It felt like stones falling on the rooftop. That night I couldn't sleep because I was wondering about the kind of rain that was falling and how it would affect this community. I was coming out to check around the house and checking on my neighbors using a torch. I pointed the torch to my brother's house, and his house was flooded and he lost 2 children. I called him, but he was not answering because the rain was really heavy. My wife is currently at the Don Bosco hospital with injuries. She's with my brother's wife, who was also injured. She had a cut in her leg and they gave her 15 stitches.
Sierra Red Cross Society has estimated that at least 3,000 people are now homeless and in need of shelter, medical assistance and food. Charities have set up points to distribute meals to those affected and provide aid. Toure, like many of the survivors, says he is struggling to come to terms with his loss and does not know how he will rebuild his life.
You see that palm we get that block? The
zinc house you see over there is mine. My brother, who lost 2 of his children, were staying near my place. Their house was flooded, but the 2 children died because they were still in bed. Most of the people who died here were still in bed during the landslide. At that time it was raining. One of the people we lost was Captain Jimmy. He was my neighbor. He died with his family. His wife was a police officer. They all died.
Officials say over 800 people are still said to be missing. Meanwhile, the search for remaining bodies intensified at the mudslide site, as aid agencies warned that corpses trapped in the mud are likely to contaminate water sources and cause outbreaks of disease. Experts say the threat of deadly landslides is growing in West and Central Africa as rainfall, deforestation and urban populations rise.
A rather sad development, but as a show of humanitarian service, Nigeria has sent 38,000 kilograms of relief materials to Freetown, Sierra Leone following the disaster. Well, this gesture is in addition to $1 million earlier donated to the troubled West African country by the federal government. The Nigerian Air Force, which carried out the airlift, in a statement announced the completion of the exercise, which it says was conducted in 5 sorties undertaken with NAF C-130 Hercules aircraft. In northeastern Nigeria, unrest among internally displaced persons has prompted the suspension of all humanitarian activities in an IDP camp in Maiduguri, Borno State, until safety is guaranteed. Reports say the IDPs were reacting to the portion of food they were served, and this caught the aid workers in the mix, some of them sustaining injuries.
These facilities at Gubio Road in Maiduguri, Borno State capital, houses displaced persons from 11 local government areas of the state. Aside from shelter, food is another basic need of these people, which the government and humanitarian partners are meeting. But over the weekend, the campers were distraught about the quantity of food shared to them, leaving some aid workers injured and some vehicles vandalized. What could have been responsible for such an action?
We were angry with these people because of the sorghum they gave us, but we simply asked for a quantity that will be enough for us and our families. 2 bowls of sorghum cannot sustain us for a whole month.
The protest was due to the delay in food distribution, and when they finally came, they didn't bring enough. In the past, they used to give us rice. This time around, they brought sorghum, 2 bowls for every family for the next 1 month. With these kind of problems, we would have loved to return home, but we don't have a home to return to.
The State Emergency Management Agency will not have any of that, condemning the violent way of expressing their displeasure.
You are quite aware that the food cluster or food sector arrangement that we are, Gubio IDP camp for the first 3 years was catered by SEMA and ICRC, later WFP now. And when the food, I think, has changed from rice to sorghum and beans, and they protested that they don't want rice, they want sorghum. They don't want sorghum, they want rice. All this will not give them room for them to attack the humanitarian workers.
The United Nations High Commission for Refugees believes returning the displaced people to their homes will be a lasting solution to the problem.
We can never have enough for the IDPs. We're talking of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are in need. And you cannot continue assisting these populations in a humanitarian form forever, because you have also other humanitarian situations around the world, and there is competition for resources.
While that and other options are being explored, humanitarian workers have promised to resume when their safety is assured.